So let's ask a question. Is it legal for a pharmaceutical company to provide financial assistance for travel, lodging, and other expenses to certain patients prescribed the manufacturer's drug?
This is the Darshan Talks podcast, regulatory guy, irregular podcast with host Darshan Kulkarni. You can find the show on Twitter at Darshan Talks or the show's website at darshantalks.com.
This was an OIG opinion from January 2020, and I thought it would make sense to explore exactly what the OIG gave an opinion on, what the implications are, and why it matters. So the drug in question is a personalized medicine made from the patient's own cells in a one-time, potentially curative treatment. The drug is approved for one of two indications. It's either refractory or recurrent, generally affects children or young adults, or it's affecting adults. So what is the implication? What is the drug itself? It's a drug that has what's called a REMS on it, and only REMS certified physicians can treat the drug, can treat the disease using the drug. The physicians who are allowed to do this, they accept the responsibility for implementing the necessary safety protocols and may prescribe and administer the drugs. Consistent with the REMS, the requester has entered into arrangements with certain inpatient and outpatient facilities, which we're calling the centers, to infuse the drug. These facilities also additionally perform leukapheresis and collect, process, package, and ship the patient's white blood cells to the requester, so that the requester may use the patient's cells, the requester being the pharmaceutical company in this specific instance, I expect, may use the patient's cells to individually manufacture the drug. So what does this center need to be able to do? The center must meet applicable regulatory requirements for third-party cell collection, processing, and other requirements, including having on-site immediate access to the drug itself, and which is used to treat severe instances of therapy-related syndrome. Essentially, they need to be able to manage results that can come out, the adverse events of this drug and of the disease state itself. They must ensure that physicians who prescribe, dispense, or otherwise administer the drug are trained in the management of the syndrome and potential toxic neurological toxicities. And the pharmaceutical manufacturer in this specific instance certifies that it does not require either the physicians or the centers to prescribe the drug exclusively, and that any facility that meets all the REMS with the attached requirements and the requester's criteria may become a center. So the key piece here is, why is the proximity necessary? The proximity of the center is necessary because, number one, to handle the fact that these patients may be required to stay there for a little bit, and only certain facilities can handle it and handle the training that's required. Under the arrangement, the pharmaceutical company proposes treating eligible disease A patients, being the older patients, and disease B patients as well. And depending on whether you have disease A or disease B, they give up to 2 caregivers for lodging, travel, meals, and certain out-of-pocket expenses. So if you're a child, you'd get 2 caregivers. I expect they might be the parents, up to two caregivers. For disease B, patients who are 26 and older, they provide the same level of support for a patient and 1 caregiver. The requester does not provide assistance with patient travel or expenses associated with the initial patient consultations with the leukapheresis or following up visits beyond the post-infusion monitoring required by the drug's prescribing information. The requester does not authorize lodging under the arrangement to a patient being treated by the center when the pharmaceutical companies knows that the patient is eligible to receive lodging from the center and such lodging is available for that patient's use. Requester has also certified that it does not advertise the arrangement. Patients do not learn about or become eligible for the arrangement until they've been diagnosed with the disease, with either one of the 2 diseases, if you will, and until they've been diagnosed. So it's not like you can entice someone to stay over with it. So what would be provided? The requester would offer to provide reimbursement for the gas and tolls, or arranged for transportation via bus, rail, rental car, or air travel. They would use potential third-party travel vendors, and the assistance is available for 1 round trip for the patients and each caregiver's place of residence to a center. The requester would also reimburse certain out-of-pocket expenses up to $50 per day per person. To receive the reimbursement, the patients or caregivers must submit written receipts to the requester documenting the expenses. Patients may receive assistance for 4 weeks post-infusion. However, if the patient's physician determines that it's medically necessary, it may go further than 4 weeks. So who's actually eligible? Eligible patients who've been prescribed the drug for an approved indication and FDA approved indication and have a household income that does not exceed 600% of the federal poverty level, and who live more than 2 hours driving distance or over 100 miles from the nearest center. So the idea would be that it's not just given to everyone, it's only to the people who need it and don't actually live close by. The requester certified that the median household income for patients who received the assistance under the arrangement was $28,000 per year, and families with an annual household income of $28,000 per year would have difficulty affording travel to and a month-long stay near a center for treatment. This is in line with certain other criteria. The travel, lodging, and other assistance that the requester offers beneficiaries allows them to travel to and stay near a center may not actually be available otherwise. And for this, the lodging, the requester provides that the physicians must meet the FDA requirements, and this remuneration relates to the expenses incurred by a patient, and the processes that's required are actually in line with what the FDA is expecting. So it's necessary for the support for the financially needy patient. So it's the CMS, technically in this case OIG, is open to the idea because of the very unique circumstances here. Is there a risk that the manufacturer's actions may limit drug distribution networks to particular facilities to reward their physicians and create risks under the anti-kickback statute? There is a risk for that. There's no doubt about it. However, the pharmaceutical company is providing assurance that any willing provider that meets the Uniform Center eligibility criteria may participate in the arrangement. It does limit the likelihood that requester uses the arrangement to reward a certain number of center physicians. So it's not like they're specifically going after specific physicians. What about the risk for future marketing? Is this a type of seeding trial? Is this a type of seeding? And what they're discovering is that it's a one-time treatment. It's potentially curative. So it's not like this causes the patients to come back over and over and over again. And additionally, these patients are not close by. They're actually over 100 miles from the closest center. So it's not like they're just going and bringing someone who lives 5 miles away. So they were actually, OIG was actually open to this. Additionally, there's a risk of beneficiary inducements under CMP. And for that, you need to generally do up to a 3-step process of analysis. So is the arrangement likely to influence the beneficiary selection of a particular provider? And the requester assists eligible disease A patients or disease B patients up to 2 caregivers. These are valuable benefits, therefore an additional analysis needs to be done. The next question to ask is, does the remuneration offered improve a beneficiary's ability to obtain items and services payable by Medicare and Medicaid? So there's no existing authority that would pay the Secretary of HHS to pay for the non-medical items and services, such as lodging and travel. The pharmaceutical company certified that it would not authorize lodging to treat patients who would be treated by the center itself. Therefore, the assistance does not duplicate other available charitable assistance from the center, and therefore does the remuneration provided under the arrangement pose a low risk of harm to Medicare and Medicaid beneficiaries. And under the promotes access to care exception to the beneficiary inducements civil monetary penalties, it's a low risk of harm if it is unlikely to interfere with or skew clinical decision making. It's unlikely to increase cost to federal healthcare programs or the beneficiaries through overutilization or inappropriate utilization, and does not raise patient safety or quality of care concerns. So in this specific instance, you're actually adhering to the drug's REMS with the elements to assure safe use, and therefore to increase access to care for financially needy patients. This actually presents a low risk of harm and satisfies the promotes access to care exception to the beneficiary inducement CMP. So overall, OIG said that in this specific instance, they would allow for this type of assistance, this type of financial assistance. So it's interesting, unusual, even though that OIG said that you probably may land up falling afoul, they will allow it in this specific instance. Stay tuned, listen in, find out more about how this might play out.
This is the Darshan Talks podcast, regulatory guy, irregular podcast with host Darshan Kulkarni. You can find the show on Twitter at Darshan Talks or the show's website at darshantalks.com.